Welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, where we unlock the secrets to level up in all areas of life. I'll be interviewing some of the world's top performers in their fields so that you can uncover and learn the strategies that have led to their overall success and apply it to your own life. Today's guest on the Elite Power Moves podcast is someone that's lived 3 lives in one. Bruce Cardenas went from serving the US Marines to walking the toughest beats for the LAPD, but also helping build Quest Nutrition into a billion-dollar brand. He's not just a business leader, he's the master of resilience, authentic communication, and scaling companies without burnout. In this conversation, we're going to dig deep into how Bruce sustained his energy levels through high-pressure environments and what it really takes to build a global movement and brand like Quest Nutrition, and the principles every high achiever and professional needs for longevity, leadership, and fulfillment. Bruce, you've gone from the Marines to the LAPD to corporate leadership. What lessons carried over and what did you have to unlearn to succeed in building Quest Nutrition into a billion-dollar brand?
I brought no value to the world, I feel like, until I went in the Marine Corps. I, lived with my parents and didn't really, had odd jobs. And I think when I turned 19, I really wanted to be a police officer my entire life. That was a boyhood dream. And I lived in this little small town, 1,500 person population. I went to the local police chief who knew me very well. They used to let me do ride-alongs. I said, hey, I really want to join the department. And he said, listen, you're basically young, dumb, and immature. But if you go in the Marine Corps, I'll hire you the day you get out. And it changed my life. I went in the Marine Corps, a boy, came out a man. And I still, to this day, there's 3 words. They're their core values: honor, courage, and commitment. Honor, courage, and commitment. And I use those words even now when I deal with business or people or relationships. Are people honorable? Do they have courage? Are they committed to the mission? So that was really the defining moment. It taught me, like, okay, here's who you're going to be in life, Bruce. And then I got out of the Marine Corps, and I didn't go back to my hometown, which would have been a dream come true anyway. A 5-person department, believe it or not, had a little hick down. I joined the LAPD, which was a prestigious 9,000 person department, and I was living the dream. I mean, it was honestly like the best job I ever had. I quickly learned about being a servant leader and also being a tremendous listener. My first training officer, Bob, who was a very gruff dude, like 30 years on the job, Vietnam veteran, really not the most friendly. I got in the car with Bob, and I remember to this day, because he taught me the greatest lesson I've learned to this day out of everything I've learned is what Bob taught me. He drew a picture of a face. It was because we had a notepad between us, and it was a big circle, 2 huge eyes, 2 big ears, and no mouth. And he said, "That's you, Bruce. I need you to do a lot of looking and listening, and I don't need you talking." And I thought, man, what an asshole, basically, right? But I quickly learned about listening to people with the intent to understand is going to change everything. There's 2 sides, there's 3 sides to every story, and most people listen with the intent to reply. So I just now listen to people, and But anyway, that was the greatest lesson. But I loved the job. It was just like, to me, it was serving the community and really bringing value to everyone I touched. So.
Yeah, I think obviously with your background with the LAPD and the Marines, how did that sort of impact your building Quest to that billion-dollar brand?
Well, it's interesting. That was a very serendipitous meeting. There's a woman named Shannon Penna who goes by Quest Creator. She was a true founder of the company. She was making the bars in her kitchen. She actually made the first 14 bars in her kitchen, and then her husband, Ron, would take that formula and then figure out how to commercialize it. And I know you mentioned Tom. He was part of the early part of the company before he exited. But I met them in the gym and became fast gym acquaintances. And Shannon had such great energy and passion talking about these bars. And I remember I said, well, gosh, like, I got to try them. And I'm, at that time, I'm still a police officer, and I have running a very successful personal protection business, bodyguard business. More money than I can imagine. And it was all based on relationships. And I'm taking care of all these celebrities. So I started getting product in people's hands, and after about 9 months, and here's really my takeaway was, I was just bringing them value because they were cool people, but I had no expectations. I wasn't like, hey, I'm going to help you get product in people's hands, all these celebrities, and I want something in return. And it was I think it's something I learned from my father, is about giving, truly giving with no ask. And Ron, the founder, took me to lunch one day and said, hey, this is really weird, Bruce. 9 months you've been helping us. We're on the set of movie sets now and commercials and everywhere. And you've not asked for one thing. And I literally said, I get free protein bars, which he literally laughed in my face and said, "You're worth way more than that. We're going to put you on the payroll next Friday." And I said, "No, no, I don't want your money. I just like you guys are cool." And he said, "You can give it to charity, do whatever you want." And that started this momentum. It went back to, because I grew up pretty poor, and I remember when I got the first pay from them, I was like, "Oh my God, now I really need to prove myself." Oh my, like I'm getting compensated. And I never shared this with them, but I went into mental overdrive of where else can I get their product? And I knew nothing about the nutrition space. I mean, I grew up a bodybuilder and, want to be Arnold, but I was never like, I wasn't in that space, but I went and sought out every opportunity I could. And there was a transition period where we went from being a protein bar company to, this was before social media had just started. Facebook just started, no Twitter, no Instagram. And people would write us these blogs and say, "Hey, I've lost 40 pounds over the last 6 months because of Quest bars. Hey, I've got diabetes and my blood sugar doesn't spike. I've got celiac disease and I can eat your bars without having stomach issues." And I say it like this is how I perceived it, is we became from a protein bar company really to a mission-based company. Like I felt we were changing people's lives. People were like writing us saying, using the words, "You've saved my life."
I think the things that I really admire about top performers like you, Bruce, is firstly, you go back to being humble. Very similar to James Key's story when I interviewed him. Like he didn't want anything. They're also really good listeners, but they're also happy to help people and open up doors. And it sounds like from your quest and what you did, you've changed a lot of lives.
Yeah, I mean, I say that very humbly. Like I don't think, I mean, yes, me. I'm not an I person. I think it was collectively a whole team of great people. I was just doing what I did best, which is build relationships. And it's interesting. I found a lot of people didn't want to do what I did because I was traveling 40 weekends a year, and that's, to some people that's mind boggling. To me, I was like, I'm living the best life ever. I'm getting protein bars in people's hands and changing people's lives. But other people, like that's a lot of work. And I've never looked, to this day. I'm like, man, I'm so fortunate to be like, I call it slinging protein, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it is something I learned from my father. My father was a give back guy. He was our Boy Scout leader. He was the one that built the community center, rec center for free. And I didn't, when you're a teenager, you don't appreciate what your parents do at all. They're, you know what I mean? You don't look at them like that. When I became an adult, I was like, man, my dad did a lot of cool things. And it was just in my DNA to be like, if you're fortunate enough to help other people, why not? That's just, I don't know. I don't brag about it. I don't talk about it. It's just what I do. And if it doesn't work for some of my friends, it doesn't work for. They're selfish and they know it, and but it's cool. I just be who I am.
Yeah. And I think I'm a big fan of identity and like our belief system and what's built in us from kids. Like if you see
Yeah.
your dad building a scout hall and, doing stuff for the community and helping, it's just part of your belief system. It's part of what you pass on. And I think that's one of the biggest parts of fulfillment that any man can have in their life is just knowing they're sort of giving and leaving something behind.
Yeah.
Bruce, Quest become more than just a protein bar. It turned into a lifestyle and a brand globally. What was your approach
Yeah.
in making it resonate worldwide?
I think what happened was, which actually, it's interesting we talk about Quest because we had a lot of mishaps, a lot of mistakes. And now, which we'll talk about in a minute, the legendary, but we made a lot of mistakes. I think we went to internationally too quick, but we didn't really completely saturate the States, and then we went internationally, but it worked fine because there was such momentum, and social media then was a thing, and people were talking about it in other countries, and it was like a phenomenon. It's almost hard to describe the growth we had, and I only attested to this. Most people, when they eat a product or a food, its taste and texture are the first things. They taste it, they try it. Wow, it tastes good. Texture's decent because protein bars aren't always good. And then they flipped it over and said, oh, the ingredients are pretty decent. And that's what really catapulted us. And then people started talking about it, like bigger names and influencers, like, hey, you got to try these Quest bars. Like, I have no stomach issues. They taste good. They're coming out with these cool flavors. And I don't know if we could really put our finger on one single thing that made this phenomenon happen, but in 5 years, we were doing north of 400 million in sales, which is unheard of in a nutrition space.
Yeah.
So I think it was collectively a lot of people working really hard and listening. Here's one thing. We listen to our customers, and I say to this then, and I say it to this day, we were obsessed with our customers and not our competition. We were obsessed with our customers and not our competition. I talk to people all the time and they're like, "Oh, Bruce, did you see another guy launching a protein bar?" Not really. Well, I don't care. I mean, I hope they do well. And as a matter of fact, when Quest started elevating, the entire protein bar category elevated
Yeah.
because what happened was someone would go into a store and buy a Quest bar and they'd say, "Oh, what's this other bar next to it? Oh, it's a 1 bar power. Oh, let me buy that too," because the clerk would recommend it. I'm not jealous of anyone. I hope more people start protein bar companies because I want to see you do well because we're going to do well with you. But most people, I don't know what percentage, a high percentage of people are like, no, 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 no competition, please don't. You're infringing on my. It's not really how it works.
Yeah. I think if you're ever working from that space, you're always working from lack anyway. If you're wanting to know what other people are doing, it just explains that you're probably not working from that space of like total fulfillment and like working from a brand, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Bruce, scaling a company at Quest pace takes obviously serious energy. What daily habits keep you at your peak performance personally?
I do the same exact thing every single day for the most part. I mean, short of when I had a surgery because I ripped my tricep off. Um, I'm not a biohacker. I mean, I work out every single day. I drink a small bottle of water on the way to the gym, but I have a routine. I wake up the same time. I work out the same time. And the cool thing about my life is the never is the same day, replicated because, like I said, I could be meeting with a CEO. I could be talking to the, marketing person at GNC. I could be talking to someone about a weight loss journey, or I could be going to speak at a mastermind about business. So I'm very fortunate, but that keeps me going because it's no different than when I was a cop when I'm in, and no, as when I'm in the nutrition space, no day is the same. When I leave my house, I really don't, it's not like, oh, I'm going to go to the office and do the following things. Things happen. People call, opportunities come up. I'll get a text last minute. Hey, do you want to fly to, Miami and we'll have you speak on some yacht this weekend? I'm like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. So it was no different when I was a cop. I'd leave roll call and you never know what you're going to get into. So listen, I'm very fortunate and I'm blessed that I'm able to work building these brands. And I always say this, I'm just glad it's protein and not canned corn because selling protein is kind of fun and sexy to me.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things, especially if you're into health and
Yeah.
that's gonna obviously it sounds like you're just living the dream, living the lifestyle, you know?
Yeah. And listen, as you know, and I lose track of time. Protein has been a buzzword now for what, 5 years where I'm not getting enough protein. It's now a conversation where even my female friends will be like, I know I'm not getting enough protein, Bruce. What do I need to eat? And before that it was keto. Before that it was intermittent fasting. Before that it's always been something. But now protein, it seems to be on everyone's mind, including kids. So it's a fun conversation because now everyone's like, I need what you have, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, it's funny you bring that up because, like as I mentioned, I work with top performers and look after their health, and the biggest thing that I see is like just not hitting their daily caloric intake in protein. They're just not meeting their. And I guess we all know that protein builds our muscle, which is our pretty much our armor for longevity. And I think it's going to be obviously protein is going to be bigger, and we see all these like ketos and like we've got different shake diets and all these sort of things that sort of
Sure.
mask the underlying issue. But having things like Quest or protein snacks out there that are going to help us hit our protein needs are pretty much going to help people live longer, as you said before. You know.
Yeah. And I just say this, I think, obviously it's not a natural food. But it's a healthier option.
Yeah.
My friends say, listen, it's better than eating a pint of ice cream at night or a real Pop-Tart. It's a healthier option. And as you said, people do not, when you calculate it out, most people do not get enough protein.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. To me, it's fun that we're doing it and we're having these great conversations. And, one thing I want to share, which is unique for us now that we've evolved, we sold Quest, gosh, almost 5 years ago for a record number. It was $1 billion cash, which is rare in business. It's called a unicorn, and we started Legendary. But what we have figured out as a group of mostly guys, we have some girls too, but mostly guys that hang out all the time and we're sitting around bullshitting, is everyone is going to be affected by cancer and heart disease for the most part, every one of us on this planet. And we're putting about $5 million a year into cancer research, but in our own facility. We have our own techs, our own lab. So now it's even more rewarding to me because, my dad died of cancer. I have a lot of deaths over disease. So to me now when I wake up, it's like, that's cool. We're trying to find cures for cancer and we're selling protein. So like I've won the jackpot.
Yeah. I think like we're stepping into an age where, I mean, you have a lot of tools out there that can help you amplify your health and longevity.
Yeah.
There's you don't really have to guess. There's a lot of research out there that will help you peak perform. And I think what men like you do, starting from your journey of, having nothing and growing up with nothing to being humble to, being a good listener to helping people. Obviously it's led to open up these doors where you get to, go and speak on a yacht, or you get these obviously people talking about how you've helped them impact their life. Um, and obviously, I know there's probably much bigger stuff that you do now, like apart from your journey. But um, Bruce, you've led in some high pressure environments, and obviously from the Marines to the streets of LA to the boardroom. What does leadership under stress look like for you, and how did you keep your team strong during high stress?
It's interesting. We all handle stress differently. I think because I became conditioned in the Marine Corps, which is as stressful as it's going to get. And even when I was a police officer involved with some pretty crazy things. To me now, if there's some stress in the business, it's like, okay, I'm not getting shot at, right? I'm not, it's manageable, right? Because what's the worst case? Equipment breaks down, orders don't get delivered, customers are saying crazy things. It's almost a very manageable stress. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like, okay, you already been to combat. So, okay, we're dealing with, a real life situation, but it's going to be okay. It could be financial ramifications, but we're going to be okay. I've always had that in my mind. I really don't get stressed about things. I probably get more stressed about personal things. Like if my kids aren't happy with me or arguing with them, that seems more stressful than a business kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know?
I think
Does that make sense?
no, it does. Like it's obviously everything you talk about is pretty much the traits of a high achiever.
Yeah.
Because I think there's always going to be stress when you're building anything or you're doing anything in life. And obviously it's just how you deal with it. Um
Yeah.
and it
And someone told me, I don't want to quote, it might have been Tim Grover. I can't remember, but stress is another form of excitement, like
yeah.
little stress. It's exciting. Like he trained some of the biggest athletes in the world. I mean, I'm sure Michael Jordan had stress, but he converted that to excitement.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of how you look at it, right?
Yeah, and actually, Andrew Huberman talks about it. Stress is enhancing, and I guess that most people can't handle that pressure cooker of life to
Yeah.
get where they need to go. I like to link it back sometimes to the book Think and Grow Rich, where the guy bought the mine and he dug and dug and dug, and lost his family, lost his health, and dug for 30 years and didn't find the gold, and like he ended up giving up and selling the mine, and the guy that come in bought it 30 meters later, he found the gold. So I don't think you're ever going to be super successful with building anything or creating anything if you can't move through that level of stress, and also obviously bring your team with you along the way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, 100%. I think, I've always had the mindset, I'm physically abled. What's the worst case if whatever business I'm involved collapsed and went out of business? Okay, well, I could still work. I could still make a salary to provide for me or my family or whatever. I've never looked at it like, oh my God, the sky's crashing. Okay, I could always do something to make money. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be homeless and I'll always be able to eat. And I think people have that mindset if they lose something, it's, oh my God, I'm done. I'm devastated. But no, let's just regroup and do it again.
Yeah, and that leads back to, I guess, our identity and our belief system, because if we can create anything, we can do it again. And most people usually come from nothing and create everything,
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Good God, I'm sorry.
I think that sort of leads into my next question about you and Bruce. So sort of now you advise founders. And I guess what do you think is the biggest blind spot you see in leaders, and how can you fix it?
Um, some leaders can't get out of their own way because I get it. You're a founder. I'm saying it was my idea. and you try and give them advice, and they almost put up a barrier of like, well, you don't understand, you don't know how hard I've worked to create this company. And I say, yes, of course I know how hard you work, but these are just some tidbits to maybe navigate those waters and realize that the employees that are working for you are the key to your success. And sometimes you'll get to that. I'm not a big, there's a thing the SEALs use, this term is called decentralized command, where there's really no hierarchy. Everyone, you're an expert in your field, and everyone just works in harmony. Companies need to run like that. The problem is, I've experienced it. There's a CEO, then there's a COO, then there's an EVP, and the poor guy at the bottom has to go to 17 people to get something okayed. What's interesting in our company with Ron, the founder, he says it best. He goes, every company has 99 problems. Most employees just bring problems. He goes, I look for the day when people come to me and say, hey, this is what we're doing. I've solved this problem. And he says, thumbs up, yay, go. Most people can't make decisions because either they're controlled by the hierarchy that has to take credit. But then you have a cool founder who's like, dude, just solve the problems, man. That's why I pay you. Make my life great. So that's one of the problems with founders. And like I said, they get caught up in their own ether. And that's one of the biggest problems, honestly. When I talk to people, they almost do not want to hear the reality. And I've talked to companies where we've done anonymous surveys with the employees, and they'll write really honest things about the owner or the leadership. And sometimes they read it and say, wow, I wonder why they couldn't come to talk to me. I said, because they're afraid, because most employees live in fear. You're a paycheck away from getting fired. And no one wants to really tell the boss that you're not really that good. You're not that kind. You're not that humble. So sometimes it's a wake-up call. Sometimes people change it overnight, and other people well, they got to get over it. So I like talking to founders because it's interesting how some are completely receptive and others are just like, I've got this far and I'm going to keep going, and maybe I'm not a nice person. I'll even accept that they're not a nice person,
Yeah. It's very common for a lot of high achievers to build I guess the empire, and to be having to do everything, to have their fingers in everything. And
Yeah.
obviously, like, it wastes your time because you're just never moving the needle. And like you said, you have to be approachable and, humble, and people, like, they've got to feel comfortable to come to you. And I like to use I'm a big fan of Dan Martell in the US, and the strategy of,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he's a great guy, and I love his philosophy of transformational leadership. Like, you're pretty much a psychologist, you're a friend, you're a father, you
Yeah.
know them, and like you guide them and coach them and show them the destination, and then you let them build, let them be creative, and
That's
it's
the
just,
best. And people then are loyal to a fault. They're not going to ever leave you when you're just treated with that, you know, autonomy and ability to think for themselves. They're going to be like, this is the greatest company in the world. Like, I'm able to do what I want. Listen, there's nothing wrong with a founder knowing about everything that's going on, but at a very light level. You know, you know, the problem is early on, some people at Quest got caught up. The art design was always a slow thing for us because we produced a product, but then everyone had an opinion on the art. And I said, I don't care what the art, I could care less, wrap it in a white paper bag. We got to get the product in people's hands, but people get caught up in the weeds, and all, weeks later, you still don't have the project done. And now we've learned we're getting product out. It may not be, the packaging may not be perfect, the labels may not be perfect, but we're getting it out.
yeah. And I guess that's what it comes down to: run a successful business. As long as you're getting product out and you're getting sales, and it's moving the pipeline. And,
Yeah.
there's always, I'm a big fan of like how people work together in teams, and like there's always some sort of block, that's stopping the actual 5% that's moving the needle.
Yeah.
So I think, like, obviously, leaders like you and what you do advising founders is obviously crucial, especially for our future generation. Um, Bruce, looking back at your journey, what's one principle you could share to other high achievers who want to have that energy, longevity, and fulfillment in both business and life?
I just, I have a tremendous work ethic. I'm not saying maybe that's not the most appealing answer, but to me, I don't know. I love my work ethic and drive, which I got from my father, and it's got me over all the hurdles. Like, I've never thought, oh, I'm going to be lazy and I'm gonna fail. Like failure, I guess failure is not really an option in life. You only listen. We're only here for a short period of time. You only get one shot. So failure is not an option, and you got to keep pushing through the hard times. And even if they're hard times, how hard are they? Like I said earlier, even if you went out of business and you were broke, okay, we'll start over again, right?
I think it's definitely like we said with the Think and Grow Rich, like a lot of the way I like to live my philosophy is life is if it's hard, do it. If it's hard, it's
Yeah,
going to grow you. Going to the gym for some people is hard. Jumping in an ice bath or the ocean when it's winter, like obviously it's hard, but it's good for your sympathetic nervous system.
yeah.
Your training releases serotonin, endorphins, dopamine, and yeah, I think you know we have
I,
to do what.
I, wi- I yeah, I wish I can give you more like colorful answer. My mind, even when I was down and out, and I almost was bankrupt when I had my security business because I didn't know how to manage money. I had no relationships. I didn't know about accounts receivable. Even when I was down and out, that and going through a divorce, I was like, well, I'm still okay. I literally thought to myself, I have a gym membership and I can eat and I have a roof over my head. I didn't even think, oh my God, I'm kind of poor again, but I just said, life's great. It's all mindset. It's all mindset. It's hard for me to stomach when I'm around people that it's constantly downer Debbie, depressed. And I asked my friend, what are you depressed about? Like what? Like we're in Southern California. The weather's beautiful, but not everyone has that mindset. So
Yeah, I think it's the like going back to like it sounds like from your upbringing, your identity and the belief
yeah,
system, like you probably grew up around a father that was just happy, like, and that's the way I think the biggest lesson I always teach the guys that I work with and anyone that I've like between my three companies that I work in is like the first thing in the morning, like you are in your trance state, you're in that 1 to 7 state, like you can rewire your neuroplasticity. And if you're up thinking about
yes,
emails and stressing and I've got to do this and I've got this bill and I've got all these presentations to do, versus, you know what? It's a beautiful day outside. I'm
yeah,
looking forward to going to the gym because I get to work
yeah,
out and look after my health, roll over and
yeah.
look at my partner,
Yeah, I will say this. Obviously, my father had a complete effect on this. He wired me right because I was one of five kids. We grew up very lower middle class. He was an electrical contractor, but we never wanted or needed for anything. He was our Boy Scout leader. We'd go hiking, we'd go canoeing. My dad, we'd go rappelling on a mountain, we'd go cave dwelling, all the things that I always wondered why my friends want to hang out with my dad. But I never knew we didn't have any money. He's like, we're going to do all kinds of cool stuff. So as far as I knew, we were rich. So that's the mindset I've always had. I wake up on a weekend and things don't require money to go hiking or biking or canoeing or rafting or mountain climbing. It's just all fun, exciting things to get your adrenaline going and makes life exciting. So I don't know. That's how I live it.
Yeah, look, Bruce. I really love talking about like how great men like you are formed, how they're created, and the systems they have, and the beliefs and what they grow up in. Because I think a lot of families they grow up with, we don't have money, like we're poor, we can't afford that, and as we know, like we're emotional beings, like we
Yeah.
work off emotions, like if we have this emotion that like is part of us that we don't have money, we don't create that. If we like we eat like this because we're Italian or whatever, like that's
Yeah.
it's just part of the life. um
Yeah. I did. My dad just, there was one thing that was interesting when I was about 12, my friends started getting the dirt bikes, motorbikes, the off-road motorcycles. And I remember the kid next door had one and my dad said, I know you want one, right? And he said, yeah. And I knew we didn't have a lot of money. He said, I'll tell you what, if you raise half the money, I'll match it. Well, I had to pay. So I went and I had a paper out and I worked for 6 months and I've raised the money, but I was like, that's pretty cool. My dad's going to pay for half of something I want. And it taught me a lot of lessons in life. Like you gotta work for what you want and nothing's free, but it's pays back, comes back.
Definitely the work ethic is the one thing that, because I think we're leading, and I talked to this about with Jim Fortin, and James Keys as well on the podcast, is like we're coming into a generation where it's like easy AI, fast food, it's get everything
Yeah.
you want. No hard, no hard now for easy later. Um, they're living this sort of easy life stuff now, and they're going to have the harder life later. And I think all these
Yeah.
lessons, sort of develop, um, you know, our kids. And I think the biggest fulfillment we all have is that's my fulfillment. And what I do in my program is, helping men create a legacy,
Yeah.
because like, and that's why I wanted to end on that other question before about fulfillment with you, because I just see these common traits when I interview men like you, about just fulfillment, happy, gratitude, like, you know,
Yeah.
happy to turn up to an Aussie guy in, Newcastle to talk and share it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'm scared. I'm scared for people now because you're right. I like even when we have new kids come in the company, and I don't say anything, but you see, they come in when they want, they leave when they want. I'm like, wow, like they're gonna have a tough future. Like, who's gonna really invest in someone that isn't investing in, So I see it, and I'm like, wow, I'm nervous for people that can't do the hard work now because they're gonna be dependent on other people throughout their adulthood.
yeah. And I think like the way I look at like anything in, I guess you're the same, like it's your habits and what you do daily. Like that's compounds. It's like Warren Buffett compounds in interest. You're compounding these habits that have created this
Yeah.
man that you are today. And I think that's the best thing we can constantly do is just keep on striving to put ourselves out there and do the hard stuff,
Yeah.
because, it's always going to lead to fulfillment down the end of the path. Um,
Absolutely.
Bruce, I do have my famous rapid fire questions for you now. So I'm gonna
All right, let's
like
go.
I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions at you for the last question.
Okay.
Um,
Uh,
Bruce, what's the most important lesson you've learned as a high achieving CEO?
be kind to everybody
What daily
because
habit has the biggest impact on your productivity?
waking up with a positive mindset.
100%. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Um, save money at all costs. Save money. I wasted a lot of money as a kid, just frivolous. Once I started making money, I should have saved money.
Yeah. What's the biggest investment you've ever made in your business?
Well, financially, I guess it's the same financially or emotionally. I've definitely invested huge with Quest, like emotionally. That was the biggest investment ever, I think.
Emotional investment is probably the best answer I've ever had, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess you've answered this one a little bit, but how do you handle stress and stay focused under pressure?
I reflect back on when things were really stressful and hard in my life and realize it's not that stressful and hard right now.
I love it.
Everything's gonna be okay.
What's one book or resource that you'd recommend for inspiring leaders?
Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
A great book. I'm going to
I've
have
read
to
it
look that
multiple
one.
times. Yeah.
And last question is, what's your drink of choice?
I don't drink alcohol at all, and Coke Zero is probably my like cheat.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
good. That's a good answer. I wouldn't expect anything else from you.
I've
Obviously,
never drank alcohol.
yeah. Um, I like that question about that you answered about like just having a look at the good stuff. And sometimes I just like to like sit there and go, you know what? We're on a huge big rock that's spinning around a boiling hot star, you know?
Yeah.
So these little things sometimes are just not it's not even worth stressing about. Um,
Yeah,
but,
it's really not. And someone just said something, and it might have been Alex Ramosi or someone said, in 100 years, there'll be 8 billion new people in the world. None of us will be here. So does it really matter? Like we got to get done. We have to get done now because we're not going to be remembered in 100 years.
yeah, I think that's what I love about, I guess my philosophy is like your discipline, which men like you have, increase your self-worth, self-esteem. When you multiply that by hard stuff and healthy habits, it increases your energy. And when we have increased energy, it increases our most valuable resources, our time, because we're living every moment like in the moment. We're having gratitude, feeling good, and you know.
100%.
Bruce, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on the Elite Power Moves podcast. And I'm sure our listeners are going to get so much out of this. And obviously, you're a tremendous man, and I really do appreciate you coming in and sharing energy with us.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor. I'm glad Justine connected us. I'm very excited.
Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you found the discussion useful. Our goal is to positively impact the well-being of 1 million people's lives just like you by sharing the experience and knowledge of some of the world's top performers. So you don't miss out on any key strategies to help you succeed, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And if you think you may know someone that would benefit from this episode, join us in our mission of impacting 1 million lives and share it with your friends.